Yay! It's time for Get Your News On with Ron. I'm here. Time for Get Your News On with Ron. That's my operatic impression. It's pretty bad. Probably already chased some people off. Hello, Dayzilla. I like your screen name. It's not a screen, it's profile, right? I just aged myself by saying the word screen name. What's up, Balthazar? What up, Sybil? I like your YouTube username. Huh? Now I'm getting lit. What's up, Natural Progressive? What's up, Mike S? Good to see ya. What's up, Andrew? Good to see you, buddy. Stay safe while traveling. Please send me some news, Mike, please. Chris Wynn, howdy, Ron. When are you coming to Indianapolis again? Graham Elwood and I are going to be doing some Midwest dates next summer. And we're either going to be in Indianapolis or Bloomington, but definitely one of the two, maybe both. Chromatic Tree, hungover but ready. Way to be a college student, Chromatic Tree. Good job. Let me live vicariously. Which, by the way, I'd love to come to your campus. You know that. I'd love to come. Balthazar, thanks for clarifying Streamlabs. Oh, we're already at 31. Good morning. Good morning. Good to see everybody. Welcome to Get Your News On with Ron, the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. What does that mean? That means you guys tweet me articles over on Twitter. That means you guys send me articles over on the Reddit subsection. And that's how we build the show. I'm seeing all this for the first time. And that's how we do things. We start out with a question. And let me tell you guys, I wanted to backtrack a little bit because we talked about this yesterday, but because yesterday was Music Monday, so we did a music-related start where we talked about lyrics, which was really cool. I enjoyed our lyrics conversation, and some of you have since checked out some of the music I talked about and were tweeting me about it, which is really cool. I think that's really neat. I like having a Music Monday where we kind of divert a little bit and focus on music for a little bit. That's a lot of fun. So what I want to ask you guys, we talked about what happened over at the DNC regarding superdelegates. And I said that it's not enough, but I wanted to pose the question to you guys. Does anybody feel like it was enough? Essentially what's going on, superdelegates cannot vote, or they do not get a superdelegate vote in the first round, and then if it escalates and a second round is required, then they step in. And as Donna Brazil pointed out on Twitter, they still have a say in setting the menu. They still have a seat at the table. So, and I tried to, I tried to give a fair assessment, and I did say it was more than I expected. I expected a lot less. I expected just some kind of number reduction. The fact that they actually took them out on one level, a little more than I expected, but still nowhere near enough, and still, the chair has power to step in, stuff like that. So it's nowhere near enough, in my opinion, and the Democratic Party at this point is arguably nothing more than a grift. I think it's definitively little more than a grift. And I think at this point the argument can be made it's nothing more than a grift. And I support progressives that are Dem entering. I do think it's good when we see some victories. However, there's a lot of concerns because we're putting all this energy into Dem entering And we may be entering a house that's completely set up against us and is going to prevent any type of real progressive change from happening. And it's kind of like you see a band, right? Like, let's say you had a band, and that band put all of their energy into getting signed to a major label. Like, they're like, we just got to get signed to a major label. I know if we get signed to a major label, all our problems are solved. And maybe they've seen a little bit of success. Maybe Capitol took a meeting with them. And we're like, hey, we kind of like your song. That one song's kind of catchy. Your sound's okay. But that band is still... But they haven't gotten a yes yet. They haven't gotten a record contract or anything close to it. They got really not much to show for it. But they're like, we gotta get signed to this major label. And they're very smart. And they're very savvy. And they write great songs. And they have a lot to offer the world. But they put all their energy into getting signed to a major label. Meanwhile, they could have spent all that time and money and resources and energy and mental output and physical output. They could have spent all of that building a following, touring. And they might have built something sustainable where they can tour and draw in every city. But instead, they have zero draw because they've put all their energy into getting signed to that major label. That's kind of how I feel about our political situation right now. We're putting all this energy, and that's why I'm scared of, or not scared, but that's why I'm more weary of them entering versus just starting a brand new party. And, you know, maybe it's the punk rock ethos that kind of fuels that for me. You know, I mean, I've always been a DIY guy when it comes to music. When it comes to my own career, look, nobody gave me permission to start Get Your News On with Ron. I did it on my own. Over at the Jimmy Dore Show, Jimmy didn't wait for a producer to step in and say, yes, we want to produce this show. He started doing it himself. And I think it's a similar notion here. I know that it's not a complete parallel comparison to compare a political structure to music. But I think the theme is absolutely the same. So that being said, I'm not fooled by this move by the Democratic Party, and I think it's time for a new party. Not so we can have a third option, but so we can have a second one. All right, let me see what you guys are saying. Maybe some of you disagree with me. Maybe some of you are thinking it's enough. CG says it's not enough. Exactly what Donna Brazil said. The two parties exist to funnel your time and energy into a useless endeavor. You are absolutely right, Ron, Karen says. Superdelegates would be pretty down far. Jordan says superdelegates would be pretty far down on my list of problems with the DNC at this point, honestly. I would say they're up there. I mean there's a lot of problems. I'm with you there. But I would say they're a pretty significant one. If it wasn't for them, Bernie Sanders would probably be president. I think that's pretty significant. Chris Swan says, agreed, DIY. I thought this was Get Your Groove On with the Guns of Brighton, Craig Robb says. Anyone that makes a Clash reference, you win. What's up, Daniel? How are you? Welcome. So does anybody think it was enough? It's fine if nobody does. Balthazar, the Dems are the sinking Titanic, bailing water with bucket stalls, the inevitable. Rip the Band-Aid off. Well, that's the other thing. You know, going back to my band analogy, a lot of times if, let's say a band puts all their energy into building a following and touring and releasing their own music, sometimes when you do that and you're successful at it, a label comes to you. A major label comes to you. There's a similar thing here. I truly do think that if a new party started to be built and there were some big names that got attached to it, someone like a Bernie Sanders or a Nina Turner or a Tulsi Gabbard or a Ro Khanna, or the list goes on, and we started building a viable new party, I think the Democrats would have to either bend the knee or accept their fate. as they're going bye-bye. Because now the progressives are elsewhere, all of them. They're all elsewhere. And now you have the Democrats fighting for conservative votes. People make it out like the idea of a third party would split the progressive vote. I think that's mixed up. I think a progressive third party would split the conservative votes between Democrats and Republicans. And Democrats have tried to do that in the past, and it has failed. It has failed miserably. So they are dead in the water. So they either bend the knee completely, or they're done. So that's why I think we should put all of our energy into a new party. Ryan says, if you build it, they will come. Chromatic Tree, Ron, how do you feel about multi-member districts? To me, that seems to be the best way to get more effective parties. You know, what I want first, and yeah, I mean, I understand some of the benefits of that. I think our biggest thing, though, is having a different voting structure and having more choices. And I really think that needs to take a lot of energy. So, I guess my kind of short answer is I'm certainly not against it, but I think we need to have just better representation in our politics first. I think that's a bigger thing. And Sybil says it's not enough. You need to eliminate them completely. Joseph points out a progressive third party at this point in time will split the progressive vote simply because a lot of them are still going with Dem Enter. If we united behind the Dem Exit strategy, that can be avoided. That's a good point. That is a fair point. I'd like to think if we had a viable third party, a lot of those progressives would come over. But yeah, part of the reason we do have different takes on things right now, and that's certainly part of the problem. David, hello from Scotland. Good to hear from you. I will be in Scotland in October, and I think I'm really stoked for it. I'm really stoked to go to Scotland. And I'm going to be doing some spots in the area, but I'm mostly going for vacation. So it's mostly vacation, but I am going to try to pop in a few spots to do some stand-up, and I will be tweeting where I'll be if anybody would want to see me. What's up, David? So we got some stories here. We'll bounce over to that right away. First, I know that I said we were going to do a net neutrality update, and you guys know how I roll when it comes to a net neutrality update. I cannot resist, which, by the way, start tweeting me articles, at Ron Placone. Start tweeting me articles. And let's go here to see exactly what's going on with net neutrality. So to sum it up, before I jump right to the article, there's a quote I want to share in it. The net neutrality bill here in California did pass the assembly. Now it's going for a full assembly vote. They need to cast the vote by the end of this month. There's been grumblings that it's going to happen today. As of this morning, right before I signed on to here, I've not found anything concrete about it happening today or that it has happened. So still waiting. And as Tom Petty said, the waiting is the hardest part. But still waiting nonetheless. So that's supposed to happen at some point before the 31st. So what has happened so far for a quick recap? Well, we had a great net neutrality bill here in California. It got gutted by a guy named Michael Santiago. Then it got fixed. And it pretty much got completely fixed, which is awesome. It passed the assembly. It is overwhelmingly popular. It goes to the full assembly for a vote. Barring no more shenanigans, it should pass. Now, there might be some shenanigans. There really might be. We can't take it for granted here. Not even in the so-called progressive utopia that is California. It's not a progressive utopia, by the way, if you didn't note the sarcasm there. But hopefully it passes. And what does this mean for the rest of the country? Well, California is a big population center. So if California gets strong net neutrality protections, New York gets strong net neutrality protections, then the fight's over. Because the internet service providers, they don't have the financial incentive to unveil these horrible price gouging packages because there's so much of the population that they can't force them upon. They can't force them in New York. They can't force them in California. So they're going to be like, well, there's no point. We have no financial incentive. We have to follow net neutrality laws in California. We have to follow them in New York. So that's why it's a good thing for everybody, not just California. And again, how are we fighting this on all cylinders? We're also fighting not just for net neutrality protections, not just for congressional overturn of the net neutrality repeal, but also for municipal broadband nationwide, because that ends the fight once and for all. We had this fight once in 2015. We're having it again today. We'll have it again in 2021. We'll have it again in 2024. We'll have it again in 2027. We'll have maybe we'll have it again in 2028. Maybe they'll just be like, fuck it, we're not even next year. We're trying to get. Who knows? But if you have nationwide broadband that takes the internet infrastructure out of the hands of the corporate, price gouging, corrupt internet service providers, your Comcast, your Verizon, your AT&Ts, and it puts it into the hands of local municipalities. Can corruption happen at the local level? Of frickin' course it can. But we've got a hell of a lot more of a fight. And all of the cities that have done municipal broadband, they experience the best internet in the country at a reasonable price. And they don't have to worry about net neutrality being taken from them. So let's go to this. Here is an update from Common Dreams regarding, and here's a quote from Evan Greer, their deputy director, that I think is really powerful and worth noting here. SB 822, that's the net neutrality law, is now one step closer to becoming law. Let me say this in no uncertain terms. Any California legislator who stands in the way of net neutrality will regret it for the rest of their political career. The whole internet is watching. Honestly, it's ridiculous and a bit embarrassing for the Democratic Party that net neutrality activists have had to fight so hard to get this bill passed in a state with a supermajority of lawmakers from a party that professes to love the free and open internet. It shows the stranglehold that monopolistic ISPs like AT&T have over state legislators, bought and paid for with campaign contributions and fancy golf outings with lobbyists. This juxtaposed with the very real impact of these companies' greed on Californians, including the story that broke yesterday, showing Verizon throttled the connection of firefighters battling the state's wildfires. We covered that here on the show, if you remember. SB 22 is the best darn state-level net neutrality bill in the nation. Passing it should be a no-brainer for the California legislator. This is a test of our democracy. It's better than I could put it. Way better. So there you go. Right now we're still waiting for the vote to happen. But I hope some legislators read that too. And I hope they take it to heart because it's very true. Very, very true. All right, so this next story comes from the Bold Progressive, and it's actually about a book. The Natural Progressive. Sorry. It's from a website called Bold Truth from the Natural Progressive over on Twitter. I gave it a retweet, and this is about a book that she wants us to check out. At least it looks like it's about a book. All right, so let me get to the top here. The Bold Truth, the Congressional apportionment amendment from the Bill of Rights was ratified in 1792, discovered in 2011. Now what? Please stand with us for the ratified amendment that says we are to have one representative for every 50,000 people in the U.S. House of Representatives. So this is looking into a case. Apparently there was an amendment that would require for every 50,000 people, there's a representative. Now, they're saying that this is not honored. We do have population requirements that are honored in districts, but it's approximate, I think, in most cases. The verbiage of it has to be about the same. And they're saying that if we enforce this, it would end gerrymandering. Now, I glanced at this for a little bit. I'm not exactly sure how that would completely end gerrymandering. I know it would have more concrete numerical requirements in districts. I don't know how that would... I feel like gerrymandering could still happen even with that. Because, I mean, we essentially have something close to that now, and we have rampant gerrymandering. And I'll go to the chat, because, I mean, I might be missing something. After the first enumeration required by the first... So here's what they're saying is neglected. After the first enumeration required by the first article of the Constitution, there shall be one representative for every 30,000 until the number shall amount to 100, after which the proportion shall be so regulated by Congress that there shall be not less than 100 representatives nor more than one representative for every 40,000 persons until the number of representatives shall amount to 200, after which the proportion shall be so regulated by Congress that there shall be no less than 200 nor less than one representative for every 50,000 persons. So when we locked in that it has to be 435, that kind of diluted all this. They're saying there's an amendment that says we need to honor this numerically, and that number is 50,000. So, again, do some more research on that. You know, this is just one source with, you know, from a website that, you know, let's be honest here, that website could use a little bit of a facelift. It looks like it was made in 1994. But nonetheless... there's some interesting cases in there, but you know, we should all do some more research. This is my first time looking at this. It's very interesting, very compelling. Natural Progressive, thank you so much for sharing it. But you know, my overall thing: do your own research on this. You know, to make such a bold claim that a part of the Constitution is being neglected. You know, I feel like you got to check out some different sources on that, do some more digging, do some more legwork. But this is an interesting starting point. So let me see what you guys are saying in the chat in case I'm missing something here, which I very well may be. So Natural Progressive says smaller districts will make it harder to gerrymander. So they're saying that it would completely eliminate it. It seems like they don't know that for sure. Smaller districts might make it harder, but interesting. Chris says, adding more representatives to the House or Senate would be a political circus with both sides trying to get their party more seats. That's certainly possible, too. All right. Cool. So this next thing we got here is from the Reddit, and let me go ahead and read what they said here. This was posted by Feline Byline. Most embarrassing, incredibly embarrassing for CNN, Lanny Davis tells BuzzFeed he was a source for a CNN story, which he now refutes about Cohen claiming that Trump knew in advance about Trump Tower meeting. So we're going over to Russiagate, folks. Buckle in. All right, so this is from the Reddit. And here's the Twitter thread they wanted us to share. This is from Aaron Matei. Aaron Matei works for The Real News. He also had an experience. He was at Democracy Now! Before that. He's a good journalist. I like Aaron Matei a lot. So here, incredibly embarrassing for CNN. This is from his tweet. Lanny Davis tells BuzzFeed he was a source for a CNN story, which he now refutes about Cohen, claiming that Trump knew in advance about Trump Tower meeting. CNN has stood by the story, even as Lanny Davis has also revealed he was the source for stories in the Washington Post and New York Post that confirm CNN's. How can they now? What is all the more embarrassing for CNN is that they appear to have lied, or more generously, blatantly misled in their July 26 story to cover up the fact that Davis was a source. In that story, they claim that Davis declined to comment. This is one of the biggest Russiagate media gaffes to date, and there have been too many to count. That's true. And yet another teachable moment for many other outlets who have ran with every explosive story under the sun with no questions asked. Aaron is right. There have been so many media gaffes in this. There have been journalists that have resigned over it because their reporting was so negligent and irresponsible. They had to quit their jobs. There's those 3 people at CNN. They had to leave their jobs. People have smeared others with no consequence. Malcolm Nance smeared Jill Stein, claimed she was an agent of RT, that she's getting paid by RT. She's not. She does not have a show on RT. That was just a straight-up lie. A lie that could be checked by just checking their channel program. Nothing's been retracted. There have been no consequences. You look at these articles assigning blame to Russian bots or Russian troll farms, and then you go to the 6th or 7th paragraph and they admit that they don't actually have a connection. In some cases, they don't have a connection to Russia at all. In other cases, there's no common theme, so these aren't some people trying to hijack an election. These are just spammers. These are just content spammers. That's all. And there's content spammers in Russia. There's content spammers here in the United States. There's content spammers in pretty much every other country. It's a money-making scheme. And we cover a lot of these stories over on the Jimmy Dore Show, where we take an article, and you know, the analogy I made, when I was in grad school, they teach you a speed reading technique. When it comes to a lot of this Russiagate hyperbole, I use a reading technique where I read the headline, which is usually grossly misleading. Then I go to about the 7th or 8th paragraph where they admit that there's no connection. They actually tell you the truth. And you look at the indictments that are going on now. None of this has anything to do with Russiagate. It's money laundering and misappropriation of funds and hush money. Is it corruption? Hell yeah, it is. Is the Trump camp behaving like an innocent party? Hell no, they're not. Why? Because, of course, they're guilty of white-collar crimes. Are you kidding? We've been saying since day one, they're probably going to get them on money laundering. One of the charges, money laundering. Donald Trump is an incredibly corrupt oligarch. If special services are on him, you think they're not going to find anything? Of course they're going to find something. But why is Russiagate dangerous? Well, because it has been used as a distractathon, A, from actual issues, and B, it has been used to suppress other voices. Everything that's going on right now with Facebook suppressing anti-war web pages, with Facebook suppressing anti-war voices. People try to share Jimmy Dore videos, they get blocked out of Facebook. That has happened. That's all because of it. This can all be traced back to Russiagate. All this is happening because of Russiagate. The fact that Mark Zuckerberg is now meeting with CIA people and government officials, it's all because of Russiagate. And what do you call when the government marries corporations? That's fascism. That is textbook definition fascism. It's linked to Russiagate. That's why this is dangerous. And when you parrot the Russiagate ideas uncritically, and you're on the left, you're being a useful idiot. You really are. And if there's some evidence that comes to the surface that changes all this, I'm open. But it's been 2 freaking years. 2 years. And they got everything. And all they have are unrelated charges. That's all they have. Meanwhile, all of the Orwellian consequences that are going on, as a RT having to register as a foreign agent, Silicon Valley determining what is and isn't free speech. That's all because of this. And those are some dangerous effects, especially when we live in a time where we need a grassroots revolution more than ever before. We need one. It's not that, well, it's not, no, we need one. We frickin' need one. And if we can't share information as easy and freely as possible, it's going to stop that in its tracks. That's why net neutrality is so important. That's why a free and open internet is so important. That's why Russiagate does have some very dangerous cyclical effects. And that's why we talk about it a lot. These are all connected. And a lot of people are failing to see those connections. And I don't get it. You have let Trump steal your critical thinking skills. That's what you've done. That's just simply what you've done. If you don't see the dangerous effects of something like Russiagate, and if you don't see how it's just a sensationalized hyperbole by the corporatocracy, this is their last-ditch effort at retaining relevancy. you're either choosing not to on purpose, or you're just, I think you're missing the bigger picture. And this is going to, it has already done more harm than good, and that's not going to change. Because it's pretty much done no good. Is it good that Trump's under fire? Yeah, to an extent. But again, none of these charges have anything to do with Russiagate. So thank you for sharing that over on the Reddit. Much appreciated. And let's see what's going on over on the Twitter. All right, this is from Jordan. I think I got to the beginning here. Let me go ahead and give it a retweet, and then we'll hop to it. All right, so let's see. This brings us over to Milwaukee. So let's see what's going on in Milwaukee. Lovely city. I like Milwaukee. Haven't been in a while. Milwaukee City Attorney blames the victim in Sterling Brown police brutality lawsuit. That's lovely. The Milwaukee City Attorney, a man named Grant F. Langley, surprised the mayor and anyone with even the vaguest sense of right and wrong. I like that writing. When he filed a court document in Sterling Brown's civil rights lawsuit Friday, placing blame for police actions that led to the disciplining of 11 different officers squarely on Sterling Brown, the victim. All right. The injuries and damages sustained by the plaintiff, if any, were caused in whole or in part by their own acts or omissions. Leaving aside for a moment the fact that Milwaukee's mayor and police chief have already apologized for the actions of officers on the scene, and that 3 of the cops, Sean A. Mankey, Jeffrey Kruger, and Joseph Grams, were suspended by the department for their specific actions. And the video's already out there. It shows absolutely no behavior on Brown's part that could remotely justify the actions of the ridiculous dozen or so police on the scene. It is my hope that this can be resolved in a constructive way for Mr. Brown and for the community. I think it's counterproductive. This is the person who's blaming the victim again. Oh wait, no. This is the mayor. I'm sorry. So this is the mayor. So Langley's ridiculous description of the event apparently blindsided Mayor Tom Barrett too. So here's what the mayor said. And the mayor was like, what the hell? It is my hope that this can be resolved in a constructive way for Mr. Brown and the community. I think it's counterproductive for anyone to turn up the heat with rhetoric like this. I'm trying to bring respect throughout the entire community, and I'm going to continue to do that. Langley is an elected official. Hopefully not much longer. Hopefully not much longer. And it is his job to represent the city in Brown's civil rights lawsuit, but it is evident that the city was in the wrong, and Langley has now put it back in the wrong. The mayor has already said so. The chief of police has already said so. Any reasonable person's eyeballs will say so. Yeah, this Langley person did the dumbest thing they could do. So Milwaukee, Grant F. Langley. Grant F. Langley, Milwaukee. Vote him out as soon as you can. Wow, Ron, you don't know anything else about the guy. I don't care. Vote him out. Anyone that does something that stupid, that in a police brutality case where it has been decided, there is video, the police department already recognized wrongdoing. You know how much it takes for them to do that? And the mayor has already, in that situation, when you're supposed to defend the city and you're in his position, you do something diplomatic like, you know, we take the utmost pride in our law enforcement and in our training, and we're certainly in the wrong here and have done so many things to correct this mistake. We're doing so many things. We're reevaluating our training, and we promise to uphold higher standards in the future. and we pride ourselves on, you guys get it. And that's just off the top of my head. That's way better than what that guy did. If you're that tone deaf and negligent, you don't deserve to be an elected official. So vote that guy out, Milwaukee. Vote that guy out. Thank you for sharing that, Jordan. I appreciate it. Andrew shares one of his tweets where he asked Abdul Saeed when he'll be endorsing this other candidate, Jennifer Kurland, who is, I believe, the Green candidate for governor of Michigan. Yeah, the Green candidate of governor of Michigan. Andrew, let me know if Abdul Saeed gets back to you. And I hope he does. Oh, wait, he did get back to you. Oh, no, he didn't get back to you. But somebody threw the corporate-ish cliche talking point at you. That'll split the vote. All right, this is from Nick Thompson. And a new study reveals the following. Almost half of Americans can't pay for their basic needs. 4 in 10 Americans are struggling to pay for their basic needs, such as groceries or housing, a problem even middle-class households confront, according to a new study from the Urban Institute. Despite the U.S. economy being near full employment, yeah, it's because you don't measure it right. It's because those numbers in many ways are arbitrary because you're not taking into account people that are grossly underemployed or people that aren't being paid a living wage. People in right-to-work states that are being exploited and aren't paid enough money to live. "39.4% of adults between 18 and 64 years old said they experienced at least one type of material hardship in 2017, according to the new study, which surveyed more than 7,500 adults. The findings surprised researchers at the Urban Institute. Really? It did? Who had expected to find high levels of hardship among poor Americans, but hadn't predicted so many middle-class families. Here's the thing. This isn't a thing anymore. There really isn't a middle class anymore. There is a discrepancy. There is a divide between the rich and the poor that is similar to ancient Egypt. The middle class is going away. There is the working poor and there is the rich. A lot of people are looking at the fact that wages aren't keeping up with household costs. Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. %23% food insecurity. The richest country in the world. The richest country the world has ever known. 23%. That's almost 1 in 4 people. Almost 1 in 4 people. Food. In the United States of America. A country that wastes more food in a year. Something is grossly wrong. Our poverty level should be in the negative. We should have a negative poverty level. We don't have a food supply problem. We have a distribution problem. And that distribution goes beyond food. It goes to everything else. I mean, we have all of the signs of Rome, and it'll end the same way. But it could end gracefully. It could end where we just decide to stop being this military might, stop thriving on the economy of war and be just another country. And we could do so peacefully and through policy. We could do that. It would take a lot, but it's not impossible. And it's a hell of a lot prettier than the alternative, because otherwise, I mean, I don't know what exactly the alternative would look like, but I know it wouldn't be pretty. We all know that. Thank you for sharing. So this is an interesting one from Mike. And then what I want to go to Andrew's, I want to get to Andrew's thing, and then we'll end on it. Let me see what else we have here. I'm trying to... All right, so the world's leading human rights group tells Google to cancel its China censorship plan. Interesting. So a quick thing here. So Google, you know, whose slogan used to be "Do no evil" or something along those lines, they are helping China with some censorship programs, and there's a good chance. You know, like they're basically saying, yeah, we'll help you censor on our search engine. And there's a good chance they're taking notes on what to do here. Let's be honest. There's a good chance they're taking notes on what to do here. We've made it clear that we're okay with Silicon Valley censorship. We're okay with it. I mean, not us, the people on this stream, but we, the United States as a whole. Because it happened to a bad guy. It happened to Alex Jones. So it's okay when it happens to a bad guy. And you know what? I feel the same way about Alex Jones I do about Donald Trump. I don't like Alex Jones, but I'm not going to let my dislike of him steal my critical thinking skills. World's leading human rights groups tell Google to cancel its China censorship plan. Yeah, the rest of the world knows this is bad. It's interesting how the rest of the world, they know this is bad. All right, leading human rights groups are calling on Google to cancel its plan to launch a censored version of its search engine in China. Say that 5 times fast. Censored version of its search engine in China. That's not meant to be read out loud. It's just not. Which they said would violate the freedom of expression and privacy rights of millions of internet users in this country. A coalition of 14 organizations, including Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, Reporters Without Borders, Access Now, the Committee to Protect Journalists, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, the Center for Democracy and Technology, PEN International, and Human Rights in China, issued the demand Tuesday in an open letter addressed to the internet giant CEO, Sundar Pichai. The group said that the censored search engine represents an alarming capitulation by Google on human rights and could result in the company directly contributing to or becoming complicit in human rights violations. That's right. They start in China. Where do they end? Nobody knows. Google had launched a censored search engine in China in 2006. They ceased operating the service in the country in 2010, citing Chinese government efforts to limit free speech, block websites, and hack Google's computer systems. So the letter calls on Google to explain the steps it has taken. And how is it going to safeguard against human rights violations? Because it occurred the first time. Why won't it occur again? And furthermore, I would want to know, why did Google agree to this in the first place? And again, there's a link here, again, to everything that's going on with free speech on the internet related to Russiagate. When you find a handful of internet trolls as the scapegoat in a political campaign, which I think everybody watching the stream knows what a joke that is. That a handful of Facebook memes in broken English, some which were seen after the election, brought down a campaign. One of the most expensive campaigns in the history of American politics. It is not even worthy of an Onion headline. Yet we entertain this fantasy on a daily basis. So Google has not yet issued a public statement about the China censorship, saying only that it will not address speculation about future plans. That's good. That's good. We're not going to tell you what else we want to do. We are voluntarily aiding censorship in China. We're not going to tell you what we're going to do next. It is not only the journalists that Google has ignored in the wake of the revelations. Getting back to the article, Amnesty International researchers told The Intercept they set up a phone call with the company to discuss concerns about Dragonfly, but they were stonewalled by members of Google's human rights policy team, who said they would not talk about leaks of information related to the Chinese censorship. Google is a member of the Global Network Initiative, or GNI, a digital rights organization that works with a coalition of companies, human rights groups, and academics. All members of the GNI agree to implement a set of principles on freedom of expression and privacy, which appear to prohibit complicity in the sort of broad censorship that is widespread in China. Following the revelations about Dragonfly, sources said, members of the GNI's board of directors, which includes representatives from Human Rights Watch, confronted Google representatives, but the Google officials were non-responsive. We're aiding censorship in China. We don't have to give you any peace of mind. We don't have to tell you about our future plans. Why? Because people decided that our corporate personhood is more important than the greater good. That's what the general public has decided. They've decided that. Google. Their corporate personhood more important than the greater good. They don't have to tell you anything. They can do what they want in China. They're a private company, right? Right? They're a private company. That's why it's okay when Facebook censors Alex Jones by implementing a vague terms of conditions. It's okay because Alex Jones is a jerk and they're a private company. It doesn't matter that, well, because they can do that, they can implement that to anything. And they have. They've done it to anti-war websites. They've done it to peace groups. They've done it to radical journalists. That's all happened. It's continuing to happen because that was the test. But everybody is blinded just because it happened to a bad guy. And yes, Alex Jones is a bad guy. If Alex Jones was found guilty of violating the First Amendment, if he was found guilty in a court of law of violating free speech laws, that's different. Then in that case, yeah, he should be removed from Facebook. That's totally different. But again, let a court of law decide that. Facebook should be required to follow the rules, the free speech laws in our country. So should Google. Why? Because they are the online town squares. They are bigger than a private company at this point. They are essential to us exchanging information. So yes, when you get to the size of them, they should have to follow free speech laws. And I know that there are not laws intact for that yet. The law has not caught up to technology. The law is behind technology in this case. But that's what we need. Because now Google is censoring in China, and then why are they doing this? Why would they do this if they didn't have plans to expand it? I mean, it just doesn't... It makes no rational sense. They failed at this before. They tried it in 2006. They failed at it. Had to end it in 2010. Why are they doing it again? Because we live in a hyper-Orwellian time. So if you think something like this isn't going to come to the United States, I envy you. I don't see how you can't be concerned about that. Thank you for sharing that article, Mike. That's a really good one. We got time for one more, so we're going to go to Andrew's thread that he wanted to show everybody, and then we'll talk about it, and that's how we'll end the show today. Oh, man, you'd think I'd get better at scrolling across the timeline. I've somehow gotten worse at it. I don't know how, but I have. All right, so here's this Twitter thread, and this is interesting. Boom, here we go. So Abdul Saeed, who ran in Michigan, he did not win. But here's what he said. I love our Constitution. Here's what it looked like written today. We the people, to form a more perfect union, establish criminal justice, ensure equity, provide for the poor, promote health care, and protect Earth for our posterity, do ordain and establish a new movement for the USA. Okay. So Andrew asks him, when will you be endorsing Kurland? She holds the same policy goals as you do. She is fighting the same political revolution you do. Fighting for the same political revolution. Why will you not endorse her? What makes you privileged enough to only want these changes if it has a D and the color blue next to it? So this Joe fellow says, because that will split the vote. Good, question mark. That means a win with as little as only 34%. If the Democrat in the race doesn't support Medicare for all, Green New Deal, ending mass incarcerations, illegal wars of aggressions, etc., what difference does it make if the R or D loses? Flint still won't have clean water. Well, I think it kind of goes without saying I tend to be on Team Andrew in this one. I think when people say it splits the vote, it's a misdirected sentiment. And I think a lot of these people, not all of them, but I think a lot of them aren't coming from a bad place. I can't speak for that person that tweeted at you, Andrew. I have no idea who that person is. But I think a lot of these people, they come from the place of politics is the art of compromise, which it is. That's true. That's true. Politics is the art of compromise. But when they say politics is the art of compromise, they're referring to policy discrepancies where one people want one thing, one people want another thing, and you meet in the middle. That's what they mean by that. They mean that when it comes to the idea of living wages, you support the fight for 15, or you don't support living wages, or you say, you know what, I support the fight for 15, but I think there should be a clause in there for small businesses. And I think small businesses should have a longer time to get there. I disagree with that. I think that's wrong. But there's some progressives that feel that that would be a good idea. I could meet that person in the middle and say, you know what, I'll still support you because you're good on every other issue. I disagree with this when it comes to living wages. But because you're going to fight for 15 overall, I can make that compromise if I had to. That's politics. That's the art of compromise in politics. And that's just one for instance, right? I'm not saying I have to make that compromise at any point. I'm using that as an example. I think the fight for 15 should just be implemented completely. No exceptions. But somebody says, well, small businesses, give them a little more time. I disagree with that. I don't think that's right. But if a candidate supported that idea and I'm with them on pretty much every other issue and I know they're a good candidate, could I say, okay, I'll meet you midway here? Yeah, that's a compromise. That's politics being an art of compromise. What the art of compromise does not mean, it does not mean you have a war economy and if you want to change that, tough shit. That's not compromise. That's servitude. No one gets a say in that. No one gets, hey, do you guys want a war-based economy? What does that mean exactly? That means we just go to war, people are going to die, but it's just going to be poor people. Rich people, they're going to be fine. But poor people, they're going to die. They have no choice. Who gives a shit about poor people, right? Like, who cares? That's going to be our economy. As a result, you're not going to have health care the rest of the world takes for granted. You're not going to have free college. You're not going to have living wages either. you're just going to work. You're going to live to work, and that's it. And we're going to have food deserts too, by the way. But we're going to be good at war. We're going to be damn good at it, and we're going to get our oil, which we should be getting off fossil fuels anyway. But a lot of people wouldn't make a bunch of money if we did that. So, did I say a lot of people? I meant a few people. Wouldn't make a bunch of money if we did that. So tough shit. Are you cool with that kind of economy? What rational person would say yes? What rational person would say, sounds good? Nobody! Nobody! We didn't vote on that. That's not politics. So when someone says, oh, we got to go to lesser two evils. No, you're not compromising. You're not compromising in the political sense. And in a democracy, other people have the right to run. These are not private elections. I mean, in many ways they are. But in verbiage, they're not supposed to be. So it's time we take them. It's time we take them back. So let me go to you guys in the chat to end the show today. We only have a few minutes left. What do you guys think? Janai says, Cole is king. Who doesn't like Charles Dickens? Tim points out, compromising is a better word. Exactly. I like that. I like that, Tim. Yeah, there's a difference between compromising and compromising. We have the latter. We have compromising. Well said, Tim. That's pretty good. Spider says, rage against the machine. Derek says, but Ron, the rich have been suffering. Give them a break. Wars for oil, boiled rope points out. And Joseph points out, the compromise also needs to occur between honest actors whose goals are intended to benefit the people. Compromise with corporate sellout bad actors is a no-starter. Yes! Compromise implies that we have a common goal. We have a common goal, and that goal is to make a decent country for everybody. That's the goal. Right? I mean that's just the barest, most basic essential. The goal is to make a decent country for everybody. So if that's not your goal, if your goal is to make a decent country for some, i.e. your donors, we're already starting at an ugly place. It's a non-starter, as Joe said. That's not compromise. So just going lesser of two evils, quote unquote, that's not compromise. That's not what that is. Saying we can't have policies we want because it'll split the vote. That's not compromise. That's servitude. There's a difference between compromise and servitude. And I think that's the theme for today's show. Holy shit, that's the theme for today's show. Watson says, when Dems fear splitting the vote, it's because voters want progressive policies. Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of touches on what I was saying. I think that we entertain this fear, and when I say we, again, I'm not referring to everybody right now, but I'm referring to, the we at large, the big we, right? The big we. Wow, I just said that. Good job. But we entertain this idea that like a viable new progressive party would split the progressive vote. No, it would split the conservative vote, because now, I mean, we already have two right-wing parties. Now there's just nothing hiding the fact that they're two right-wing parties. And when you already have like an on-the-surface right-wing party with the Republicans, why do you need the Democrats? All right, who's creepier, bald dude, Bezos or Rick Scott? Balthazar asked. I'm going to go with Bezos. Next on Maddow, was McCain's rumor Russian? Yes. Somebody actually was tweeting stuff like that. Somebody was actually tweeting about how McCain had a tumor and somebody else had a tumor, and they were both longtime enemies of Russia, and they weren't being ironic or funny. Marcus, how do we encourage more locally owned business in the U.S.? That's a pretty big question. We're probably going to have to ask that tomorrow, because that's but I would say a greater social safety net. People can be innovative when they have their basic needs met, i.e. more food, i.e. food in their belly, an ability to go see a doctor without whether they can pay or not, and a roof over their head. So I would say stronger social safety net, i.e. Single-payer healthcare, i.e. An actual jobs program. Because when you have something to fall back on, you're more likely to be innovative. And free college. So we'll talk more about that tomorrow. Guys, we are totally out of time. A little bit of housekeeping if I could. First of all, shout out to today's sponsor, ZT.com, ZHIT.com. Their tea, it kind of rules. If you're in Austin, Texas, go see them in person. If not, go to their website. Their tea's freaking amazing. Tour dates, November 2nd, I'm in Sacramento, California with Graham Elwood. November 3rd, I'm in San Francisco, California with Graham Elwood. And you know who else is going to be on those shows? Twitter sensation Peter Douche. Peter Douche is going to be opening those shows. He's going to have his book with him. Yeah. Tickets are available at ronplacone.com. Also, I will be in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania on November 23rd. Tickets available at ronplacone.com. Want to support this show on the sustainable level? Patreon.com/ronplacone. For a pay-what-you-can level, you get all kinds of exclusive content, including my album delivered to your inbox via digital download when it comes out in November. I almost said June. I don't know why I said that. My album comes out in November, not June. November, not June. So, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for being part of this. This has been Get Your News On with Ron, the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. And we'll be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Again, I know a lot of you guys don't get notifications, so make a note. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Pacific Time, we'll be here. You guys are great. Thank you so much for being part of this. I will see you tomorrow.